In this video, I explain how we're testing regenerative farming techniques and why we've used a field of flowering chicory to make compost.
Good morning everybody, it's Saturday the 26th of April and I just wanted to touch on this field. As you can see, this is where we had the drainage done, and as I said at the time, one of the benefits is taking these opportunities to have a look at unexpected trials take place. So this is one of those sites. So the rows are coming up nicely. As you can see here, this is spring wheat. It's grown on a seed contract for Millcoat Seeds. The variety is Lennox. And if we go down and have a closer look, it's sort of 3 going on 4 leaves. Okay, as you can see, row spacing is pretty tight, and the reason this is drilled with the Moore drill, and the Moore has much tighter row spacings than the Claydon, and especially in the spring when we're trying to conserve moisture, that disc coulter really helps just punch the seed in, cover it up. So this was actually the site where we decided to come back with the harrow and give it another harrow after drilling, but before we rolled it. Now, if we pan across, you can see the white lines indicate where the chalk has been pulled up with the drainage scheme. So we know that, hence here we're at the edge of the drainage scheme, and in fact, if you have a look at the lines, the seed lines are going this way, and then just about here they change into this direction. So this was drilled later. I will put, okay, there we go, drilling this way or drilling that way. Okay, so there's a slight change. So we know where the drill will change even without the edge. So, different drilling date after this miss here, and you cannot see much difference, really any difference at all. Interestingly, the mole ploughs, the disturbance from the mole plough, that is still quite obvious in the fields. Even if we turn around, going the other way, you can still see the mole ploughs, and similarly, where the drainage was. It's interesting. It's not really chalk, it's more flint. I mean, look at that. I bet they enjoyed digging through this. But it is certainly thinner, but that will disappear. And as you can see, really not much difference in size at all between this area, which was drilled later, and the area the other side of the line, which was drilled about 10 days earlier. So thank you very much for last week's video. Lots of likes, lots of views as well, and some really good comments saying they support the longer content, so I'll do my best to provide more of that. Now, one comment that did come up, which was, could you give us a little bit more detail on the farm? So I thought this would be a good opportunity. So quickly, my grandfather was self-made, and he built the farm, and the farm that I live on he bought in 1953. Both my father and I have worked off the farm before returning. He was an economist and I trained as an accountant. And when I came back to the farm, we are always under a lot of development pressure. We farm on the edge of Aylesbury, and so there's always a housing expansion problem or demand, but it's also about infrastructure. So HS2 runs through our holding, so I'm going to try and put a plan up which I saw the other day from Gatekeeper, which actually kind of shows all of our field boundaries and how the field HS2 cuts through us. And in fact, the farm is about 400 hectares, and 150 hectares owned by me, 150 hectares owned by my father, and then we contract farm a further 100 hectares. And even the contract farm is affected by HS2. So nearly every block we have has been affected by HS2. So just by way of explanation, this is the field we've just been in, and this really helpful squiggly boundary is my new HS2 boundary. Now this field used to extend all the way down, it was a 38 hectare field, all the way back down to that spoil pile there. HS2 actually runs behind that spoil, and that clump of trees there, that used to be ours with the dump trucks parked behind it. They're moving a huge amount of chalk at the moment. This is the track you can see now coming across. This is the chalk they've been moving, and all the way around to a big spoil pile there. So, and my field continues on the other side of those trees. So in this particular case, this field, I think the land loss wasn't too bad. It was about 5 hectares, but in total we have lost about 60 hectares. So it's had quite a profound effect on our business. So you can say, well, you know, that's all, you know, very sad, but what relevance has that got to your to the channel? Well, the point is that when HS2 takes your land, they think about what's good for HS2, not what's good for the farm. So to take this boundary as an example, you get awkward shapes like this, and that, I'm not sure if it quite makes it out, but it kind of really goes round the corner. You can see the Harris fencing behind the Harris fencing, so it wiggles. And as we turn around, you can see how the boundary bends and then comes out, and then it goes in quite steeply and out again. So at the end there's a particular big bend down there, not very helpful. And I have chunks of land that are very difficult to get to now. I think my worst case is, at one point I had 6 sets of gates to go through to get to one, not even a very big field. I think it was 10 hectares or something like that. So at the time, we had been Claydon drilling for quite some time. I was looking at a more regenerative system. I travelled out to America to Gabe Brown's Soil Health Academy, and two takeaway points that I took away. Firstly, that it's going to be a difficult journey and financially difficult, so only really put as much land as you're willing to make a mistake with. Sorry, I had to switch arms, my operated arm's getting a bit sore. The other point was that it's going to be a lonely journey, so try and get a support network. So my thinking was twofold really. One, I'm in a privileged position. HS2's paid me out for most of my land, so I've got the funds to run the experiment. So I wasn't convinced that the regenerative journey was going to be straightforward, so I document it on my YouTube channel. I split my farm, so the stuff that's worst affected by HS2 that I really don't want to visit that often, I put those fields into a really quite a hardcore regenerative farming model. So that is overwinter cover crops, direct drilling, minimal soil movements. Most of it's just direct drilling, although we have incorporated the Terrastar recently. And then I try and do an open book policy whereby I do a yield comparison and trials, and then financial comparison as well, to show the realities of regenerative farming versus conventional, both financially. And I try and share those lessons with you guys on the channel. As a result of those combined challenges, we do stuff that maybe a more production focused farm wouldn't consider. So for example, this week we have a agroforestry trial outside my house, and we've got 15-meter alleyways of fruit trees at the beginning. We do Christmas turkeys. We do about 750 Christmas turkeys, all sold direct through our website, and the idea is to try and move them out into a fruit orchard. So we've got some fruit trees at the beginning, and then in a nod to global warming and our compost requirement, we have coppiced willows, and for the nuts, coppiced hazel. That's in front of my farmhouse, and this week it's a CSS option for multi-species diverse lay. So it's got a lot of chicory in it. It grows up beautifully, sort of a cornflower blue amongst the fruit trees. Really beautiful. As it turns out, it's one of my wife's favourite fields now. Now the issue that's generated is I like to try and leave the chicory to go to seed so that the birds have something to nibble on during the winter. It was unintentional, but it seemed like a suitable thing to do. Now that and pieces of land like this behind me. So there's quite a big watercourse in this tree line, and we have had water sort of coming out to the field. So this is a CSS option for watercourse protection. I think that's what it is. There's further wild bird food cover up by that pylon, but stuff like this that grows quite thick, we're having sort of, historically we've topped this, but it seems like quite a waste. Gabe Brown made the point that you should look at all of your waste streams and see how you can reincorporate them into your regenerative farm. For me, that kind of includes the waste grass from this. So we've been trying to figure out a system by which we incorporate waste streams into our composting system. So I've done videos in the past about cut this with a forager and then fed it into our compost heap. After all, you need green waste in order to generate the heat as the bacteria break it down. So what we try and do is pick up areas like this. We've bought an old forage box to try and pick up the grass like this. In today's particular example, we've let the chicory and grass over winter. The birds have had all the seed. New growth is coming from the base, so we've just mowed it off with a front mower, trying to be careful around the trees, and that is now going into the compost heap. As it happens with the forage box, we probably weren't operating it correct. We finally tweaked it after this footage to not run the pick-up chains when we're actually gathering the grass. So you can see by this flood damaged bit of land here So probably the only weak bit of this field, but about where that telegraph pole is here, water comes out the stream in the middle of winter, floods through and floods this area. Now in actual fact, the flooding used to be a lot wider than that. You can see a bit of a rise up here, and there was another big hole which we filled in. The other part of our farm business is diversification. So we have commercial lets, container lets. I've done barn conversions as well, which are used for offices. So those also contribute towards the farm's income streams, and we try to use them to complement the arable farming operations. So just at the bottom here, we've got a place where the water flooded out of the stream, and if we have a building project, any spoil we generate will go to fill in places like that. So we're always trying to improve the farm. As you've seen from this winter, big investment in drainage. I don't think there's any point in us making life hard for ourselves. Now this is one of our strongest fields, but just compared to where we started, these guys are really motoring. There's 3 rows here, 1, 2, 3, and it really is nice thick crop. Last week's video I talked about I think it was 8 millimeters of rain we had just after some fertilizer spreading. Well, safe to say we've actually had a rather unexpected 20 millimeters on Tuesday, and that's really kind of saved all of my spring crops now. I'm quite confident that we've got a good yield potential. I don't know if you can see them running on the other side of the dogs there, but some roe deer, pointer in hot pursuit. Better just stop and sort this out. I read with interest John Paulsey's comments about deers attacking his Agroforestry in a Farmers Weekly. I hope those guys aren't off to visit my agroforestry, fingers crossed. And then as far as sort of the business structure goes, I farm in partnership with my father. The 2 businesses are separate, but we pool machinery, resources, and then we have one FBT that we farm close by. When it comes to housing and development pressure, that also massively increases our cost base. So this week we finally got access to, I think it's a 5 hectare block that's in between, it's in a triangle between a railway, a road and a housing estate. So we finally got in there. It's quite a heavy, it's very strong soil, but it's very moisture retentive, so I was no rush to drill it, and it's earmarked for development, but the planning application got kicked down the road again in January, so I wasn't going to plant it. Then I decided I was. So a little bit of footage from this week of Jack drilling it. It was terraced first, then it was drilled with the moor, and finally it was rolled with looks really quite nice now.